good-for-nothing village girl. You serve my breakfast on time, clean the house, and wash my clothes. Make sure you wash all my clothes. I don't want to see any stain, and after that, you iron them. If you know what's good for you, wash my feet well. If not, you'll start over. Do it right.
She knelt on the kitchen floor, scrubbing tiles that were already clean. Behind her, she could hear laughter. Her husband's second wife was in the living room, watching her favourite show, eating the food Rayan had cooked, wearing the perfume Rayan's husband had bought while Rayan scrubbed. 7 years. 7 years of this. And yet they had no idea. They didn't know about the small cloth bag tucked under her mattress. They didn't know about the coins and notes she had been collecting since the 2nd year of this marriage. 20 naira here, 50 naira there. Every little thing she could save without them noticing. They called her worthless. They treated her like furniture. But while they were busy spending everything, Tunde had every contract, every investment, every naira Rayan was building something quiet, something they couldn't see, something they would one day desperately need. The day that bag of money became their only hope, that was the day they finally understood who they had been living with. Stay with me, because this story will break your heart before it heals it. It will make you angry before it gives you peace. And by the end, you will understand something that takes most people a lifetime to learn. Let me take you back to a small village, back to the beginning, back to the day a girl named Rayan was sold. Rayan was 18 years old the day her life was decided for her. She was sitting outside the compound, washing her mother's old wrapper, when Brother James called her inside. His voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that meant something had already been decided without her. Inside, 3 elders sat on wooden chairs. They did not look at her directly. That was the first sign. "Sit down, Rayan," Brother James said. She sat. "Your mother left a debt," he began. "Before she died, she borrowed money from the Adeyemi family. A large amount. Money for her treatment. Money for food during her sickness. The debt has grown. The family wants it settled." Rayan's hands were still wet from the washing. She pressed them together in her lap. "How much?" she asked quietly. Brother James told her. She closed her eyes. It was more than she could earn in 3 years of market trading. More than anything she owned. More than everything. "There is one way to settle it," one of the elders said. "Tunde Adeyemi is unmarried. He is 35. Successful. He has agreed to cancel the full debt if you marry him." Silence. Outside, a goat cried somewhere in the compound. A child laughed in the distance. Life continued as if nothing had just changed. "Me?" Rayan said. Not because she didn't understand, but because she needed to hear it again. "You?" Brother James said. "He will take care of you. You will have a home, a good life, and your mother's name will be free of debt." She thought of her mother, how she had suffered at the end, how she had cried not from pain but from shame that she was leaving her daughter with nothing, not even a clean name. Rayan nodded. That was all. Just a nod. And her life was arranged. She met Tunde 2 weeks later. He came to the village in a black car that made children run to the roadside to stare. He wore a clean ironed shirt and smelled of something expensive. He was not ugly. He was not unkind. He shook Brother James's hand, spoke respectfully to the elders, and looked at Rayan with something that felt almost like gentleness. "You will be comfortable," he told her. I am not a difficult man. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. The wedding was small. No dancing, no celebration. A few words, a few witnesses, a meal that nobody enjoyed. By evening, she was in his car, leaving her village behind. She pressed her face to the window as the dusty road disappeared. She had no mother, no father, no siblings. She was leaving with nothing but the dress on her back and the quiet prayer on her lips. God, let this be good. His house in Lagos was large, bigger than anything she had seen. Marble floors, high ceilings, a kitchen with a gas cooker she didn't know how to use at first. But Tunde barely spoke to her that first night. He said he was tired. He had calls to make. He would see her tomorrow. She sat alone in the big bedroom and listened to the city outside. Loud, unfamiliar, nothing like home. Something felt wrong. She couldn't name it, couldn't point to it, but it sat in her chest like a stone. She thought it was just nerves. She was wrong. The Lagos woman. The first weeks of marriage taught Rayan one thing. She was alone. Tunde left early every morning before she woke. He came home late, ate whatever she had kept warm, answered her questions with 1 or 2 words, and went to bed. She cooked, she cleaned. She arranged and rearranged the house, trying to make it feel like home. She smiled when he glanced at her. She asked if he needed anything. She tried. He was never cruel, but he was never present. She told herself it was work, that he was a busy man, that things would change. Then one evening, she went to dust the bedroom and found an earring on the floor beside the bed. Small, gold, not hers. She picked it up carefully, as if it might burn her, turned it over in her fingers, stood there for a long time. When Tunde came home that night, she was sitting in the parlour waiting. I found this, she said softly. She held out the earring. He looked at it, then at her. Something moved behind his eyes. Not guilt, not exactly. More like irritation. Where did you find that? Bedroom floor. He took it from her hand, slipped it into his pocket. Mind your business, Rayan. That was all. She opened her mouth, closed it. The words she wanted to say dissolved before they reached her tongue. She had no power here. She knew that already, but she hadn't understood it fully until that moment. 3 days later, Chioma came. She didn't knock the way a visitor knocks. She opened the gate and walked across the compound like she owned the ground beneath her feet. Tall, light-skinned, wearing a yellow dress that cost more than Rayan's entire childhood. Her hair was done, her nails were done. She smelled like the inside of a boutique. She stopped when she saw Rayan at the doorway, looked her up and down, slowly, without apology. So you're the village wife, Chioma said, not a question. A verdict. Rayan said nothing. Where is Tunde? He's not home yet. Chioma walked past her into the house, sat on the sofa, crossed her legs, picked up the television remote like she had done it 1,000 times before, because she had. Tunde came home an hour later. When he saw Chioma, his face changed. Something opened in it, something warm, something Rayan had been waiting for him to show her. He didn't send Chioma away. He didn't explain. He sat beside her, spoke to her in low tones, and twice he laughed. Rayan stood in the kitchen doorway and watched. That night, she lay on her side of the bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. She didn't cry immediately. She waited until she was sure he was asleep. Then she turned her face into the pillow and let the tears come. Quiet tears, the kind she had already begun to learn. Silent, controlled, hidden. She remembered what her mother used to say in the hardest moments. God will make a way, my daughter, even when you cannot see the road. She held those words in the dark. She had no idea how long the road ahead was. 6 months later, Tunde called Rayan to sit down. She knew from his face that whatever was coming would hurt. She had learned to read him in small ways. The way he avoided her eyes when something was wrong. The way he cleared his throat before difficult words. I am taking a second wife, he said. The room didn't shake. The walls didn't fall. Everything stayed exactly where it was. But something inside Rayan cracked quietly, like old wood splitting in dry season heat. Chioma? She asked. Yes. She nodded slowly. Her hands were folded in her lap. She pressed them together to stop the trembling. Okay, she said. That was all he gave her. No apology, no explanation, no gentleness. He stood up and walked out, as if he had simply announced a change in meal plans. She sat there alone for a long time. Chioma moved in on a Saturday. She arrived with boxes, many boxes, bags of clothes, a vanity mirror so large 2 men struggled to carry it. She directed everyone loudly, pointing here and there, her voice filling every corner of the house. Tunde showed her the master bedroom. Their bedroom, Rayan's bedroom. Rayan stood in the hallway and watched Chioma's boxes disappear through that door. That evening, Tunde came to find her. You'll take the small room at the back, he said. It's more comfortable for you there. More comfortable. Rayan moved her few things into the back room. A small bed, a small window that faced the compound wall, a ceiling that sometimes leaked when it rained. It became her world. Within a week, the orders began. Rayan, where is my breakfast? Rayan, iron this dress. I'm going out. Rayan, the bathroom needs cleaning. Did you not see it? She cooked for Chioma. She washed Chioma's clothes. She scrubbed bathrooms and mopped floors and prepared trays of food that she carried to the master bedroom door. Once, she forgot to add pepper to Chioma's soup. Chioma called her back to the kitchen, lifted the pot and poured it into the sink. Cook it again, she said, and get it right this time. Rayan cooked it again. When she reported it quietly to Tunde, he sighed. Just respect her, Rayan. She is your senior wife. Learn to manage. She never reported anything again. The savings began by accident. One Thursday, Mama Sola at the market gave her extra change. A mistake. 200 naira too much. Rayan stood there, the notes in her palm, and thought about returning it. Then she thought about the soup she had cooked twice that day. The bedroom she no longer slept in. The husband who had never once defended her. She folded the money carefully, slipped it into her brassiere. That evening she found an old cloth bag at the back of a drawer. She put the 200 naira inside, folded the bag, pushed it deep under her mattress. She didn't know why. She just knew she needed something that was only hers. 7 years passed. 7 years of waking before 5 in the morning. 7 years of lighting the stove while the house was still dark and quiet. 7 years of cooking, cleaning, scrubbing, carrying while the rest of the house slept. This was Rayan's life, and she lived it without complaint. The routine never changed. By the time Chioma emerged from the master bedroom at 10:30, breakfast was already on the warmer. Rayan had eaten her own portion standing at the kitchen counter, leftover stew, cold rice, before anyone else was awake. She never sat at the dining table when Chioma was home. It was easier not to. "Bring it to my room," Chioma would say, not looking up from her phone. Rayan would carry the tray down the hall. Knock gently, set it inside the door, walk back to the kitchen to begin washing the pots. She never received thank you. She stopped expecting it by year 2. The savings grew slowly, painfully slowly. But they grew. At the market, Rayan had become skilled. She knew which sellers inflated prices. She knew which mornings to find tomatoes cheapest. She bargained quietly, carefully, and whatever she saved from the housekeeping money, she kept. 20 naira, 50, sometimes 100. On good weeks, Mama Sola would slip her a little extra, not by accident anymore, but on purpose. The old market woman had eyes that missed nothing. She never asked questions. She just pressed the notes into Rayan's hand and said, "For your future, my daughter." Every naira went into the cloth bag under the mattress. Rayan never touched it, never borrowed from it, not even when she needed new slippers and her old ones had worn through to her bare heel. She tied a piece of rubber around them and kept walking. The bag was not for today. She didn't know what it was for, but she protected it like it was everything, because somehow she knew it would be. Meanwhile, Tunde's business was thriving. He spoke loudly at dinner about contracts and profits and expansion. He bought Chioma a car in year 3, gold jewelry in year 5, a trip to Dubai in year 6. He came home smelling of celebration, restaurants, whiskey, success. Chioma wore it all proudly. She had friends who visited in expensive clothes. They sat in the parlour, eating Rayan's cooking, laughing at things Rayan would never be invited to understand. Once, one of Chioma's friends looked at Rayan as she cleared the plates. "Is that your house girl?" the woman asked Chioma. Chioma smiled. "Something like that," she said. Rayan carried the plates to the kitchen, set them down, stood at the sink for a moment with her eyes closed. Then she washed the dishes. That night, she counted her savings for the first time in months. She spread the notes carefully on her bed, organizing them by denomination, her lips moving silently. When she finished counting, she sat very still. It was more than she had imagined. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough for something. She folded it all back carefully, returned it to the bag, pushed it back under the mattress, lay down on her small bed in her small room and stared at the ceiling. Outside, she could hear Chioma laughing at something on television. Rayan closed her eyes. "God does not waste suffering," she told herself. "He is building something, even now, even here." She believed it. She had to. It began with a phone call. Rayan was in the kitchen when she heard Tunde's voice change. She had learned the texture of his moods over 7 years, the confident boom when business was good, the clipped irritation when he was tired. But this was different. This was fear. She stood still and listened without meaning to. "What do you mean the account is frozen?" "Emmanuel. Emmanuel. Listen to me." His voice cracked on the last word. She had never heard it crack before. It came out slowly over the following days, the way a wound reveals itself. Emmanuel, Tunde's business partner of 11 years, had been moving money quietly for over a year. transferring, redirecting, stealing. By the time Tunde discovered it, the accounts were nearly empty and Emmanuel was unreachable. The bank sent letters. The lawyers sent letters. Men came to the house twice, standing at the gate with documents, speaking in the flat professional voices of people delivering bad news for a living. Tunde sat in the parlour for 3 days, barely moving. Chioma's reaction was swift, precise, almost practiced. On the 4th day, she began packing. Not slowly, not with hesitation, but with the focused energy of someone who had always kept a mental list of what belonged to her. Clothes first, jewellery, the small television from the bedroom, her cosmetics, her shoes, her handbags, arranged in a row. Rayan watched from the hallway. Tunde came out of the parlour when he heard the noise. "What are you doing?" he asked. Chioma didn't stop folding. "What does it look like?" "Chioma, I have people I can call," she said flatly. "People who are still standing. I cannot stay here and watch everything sink." She zipped the bag, looked at him directly for the first time. "I did not marry poverty, Tunde. That was never the agreement." He had no answer. She left that same evening. Didn't say goodbye to Rayan. Didn't look back at the house. She walked through the gate and got into a car that was waiting someone else's car and was gone. The compound felt suddenly very large. Tunde fell apart quietly. He stopped eating properly, stopped shaving. He sat with his phone in his hand for hours, calling people who no longer answered. The arrogance that had filled him for years, the loud laugh, the broad shoulders, the certainty, all of it had left with Chioma's boxes. One evening he found Rayan in the kitchen. He stood in the doorway and looked at her. Really looked. Like he was seeing her properly for the first time in years. "I have nothing left," he said. His voice was hollow. Rayan turned from the stove. "We will manage," she said quietly. He almost laughed. Bitter, broken. "Manage with what, Rayan? There is nothing. Do you understand? Nothing." She looked at him for a long moment. She said nothing. But that night, after he had gone to sit in the dark parlour, she went to her small room, knelt beside her bed, reached underneath, pulled out the cloth bag. She held it in both hands. 7 years. Every silent morning. Every cold plate of leftovers. Every tray carried down that hallway. Every naira bargained and saved and protected. It had all been building to this. She placed the bag on her bed and began to count. She placed the money on the breakfast table the next morning. Not dramatically. Not with anger or triumph. She simply set the cloth bag down beside his cup of tea, the way she had set down trays of food for 7 years quietly, without ceremony. Tunde stared at it. "What is this?" "Open it," Rayan said. He untied the bag slowly, looked inside. His hands stopped moving. He began to count. She watched his lips move, watched his eyes change confusion first, then disbelief, then something that looked like it might break him completely. When he finished, he looked up at her. "Where did this come from?" "The market change," she said. "What I saved from the housekeeping. What I went without so it could grow. 7 years, Tunde. A little at a time." He couldn't speak. "You were buying jewellery," she said. Not with bitterness. Just truth. I was buying time. He put the money down on the table, pressed both palms flat against the surface. His shoulders dropped like something heavy had finally finished breaking inside him. Rayan. Her name came out of him differently than she had ever heard it. Stripped of everything, no distraction, no distance. "You saved this," he said. "While we treated you like—" He stopped, shook his head. "I cannot even say it." "Then don't," she said. "Just let us use it wisely." They paid the most urgent debt first, then the second, then the third. What remained, they used carefully a small trading business, simple goods, honest work, nothing like what Tunde had built before, smaller, quieter, but real. He changed slowly. The way real change always happens, not in one moment, but in many small ones. He started waking early, started cooking his own tea without asking her, started saying please, started saying thank you, started sitting beside her in the evenings instead of in front of a television. One night he apologized. Not quickly, not conveniently. He sat down across from her and apologized the way a man apologizes when he has truly seen himself clearly and does not like what he found. "I was a fool," he said. "I chased noise and called it success. I had something real in this house and I treated it like it was nothing. I am sorry, Rayan, truly." She was quiet for a moment. "I forgive you," she said. "But we do not go back to what was. We build something new." He nodded. "Something better," he said. Chioma heard they had survived. Word travels fast in Lagos. She called once a smooth, warm call, as if nothing had happened, as if she had simply stepped out for fresh air. Tunde listened. Then he said, "I know who stood by me. I won't forget that again." He ended the call. He never answered another one from her. Months later, Rayan walked through the market with her head up. The women who had pitied her, who had pressed extra change into her hand and whispered prayers over her in the stall aisles, they saw her differently now. Not because she wore fine clothes. She didn't. Not because she had become loud or bold or sharp like Chioma, but because something in her had settled. She walked like a woman who knew her own value, who had always known it. Mama Sola caught her arm one afternoon. "You did it," the old woman said. "I always knew you would." Rayan smiled. "The real kind, the kind that reaches the eyes." "You helped me," she said. "No," Mama Sola said firmly. "I only gave you change. You turned it into something. That was all you." And so the village learned what Rayan had always known. That true value is not in beauty or education or city sophistication. True value is in character, in patience, in faithfulness, in the quiet strength that endures when everything else falls away. The woman they called worthless saved them all, because she understood something they didn't, that God does not waste your suffering. He uses it to build something stronger than gold. And in the end, the one who endured in silence spoke the loudest truth of all, that humble faith will always outlast proud arrogance. Rayan's story became the story mothers told their daughters, the story of the silent sufferer who became the quiet victor, and they would end it the same way every time. Never despise the one who serves in silence. You may need them when your loud world falls apart.